I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with that really amazing painting of the Supper at Emmaus by Caravaggio. It's a really cool painting, folks, that just captures very well that amazing moment where the two disciples, they realize who it is that's sitting with them at the table. It's a painting, friends, where Jesus, if you notice, he's really calm, he's really serene, while the other two disciples, they're in kind of astonishment mode. They just don't know what to say or do. One of the disciples, that have their hands on the back of the chair, pushing it back, just like if they're getting a whoa moment, while the other guy is in full whoa moment. His two hands are out like that, just not sure what to do, what to say, but completely surprised and completely astonished at Jesus sitting there beside them. It's in the National Gallery in London. But it's a really cool painting, folks, that captures a moment that's frozen in time, where the two disciples, they now realize that Jesus is in fact alive, that the reports that are coming from Jerusalem are true. In other words, everybody, the reality of the resurrection, it suddenly dawns with the two disciples. Really, really good stuff. It's a really great gospel passage, everybody, because it does, because it begins with two people, what seems to be anyway, going the wrong way. But at the end of the gospel, they're turned back, they're going back the right way, back on track, so to speak. But it's what happens in between is really, really important. It's quite a relevant passage, folks, to say the least, because I think we all know so many people in our lives today, people that we know that are on perhaps the wrong path, the wrong track. I mean, look at the two disciples. Like I said, friends, they seem to be going down the wrong way, and they're mulling over the events that took place in Jerusalem in just a few days beforehand, namely the crucifixion of Jesus, who died, and of course in the subsequent reports that he rose from the tomb he was placed in. It's really interesting, folks, because they have all the facts in one sense. They know all the stories, they're hearing all the reports of what's after going on, but they just don't get it. They seem to just, it's not clicking with them. What are they doing? Then they start walking away. They leave it behind, going back to their old jobs or whatever it may be. But then Jesus shows up, starts walking beside them. And it's really beautiful because Jesus seems to go through the entirety of the events of the Old Testament where God intervenes, and all of that accumulating with the crucifixion of Jesus and his resurrection. But the disciples, they still don't seem to get it fully. I mean, folks, how many people do we know? Family, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, you name it, etc. All who know the stories of the Bible quite well. Well, they know of them anyway. They spent 13, 14 years in Catholic schools, but they come out not believing in Jesus. They come out not knowing anything about the faith, essentially. They don't come to Mass. We all have people like that who just don't get it and are kind of going down a wrong path away from the Lord. And I know this is a huge source of sadness for so many of you out there online and those of you here in the church. It can be a huge source of sadness for obvious reasons. But folks, the question is, what happens to disciples for them to believe that Jesus is in fact alive, to believe in him, that they recognize him? What does he do? He simply breaks bread, and their eyes are opened to Jesus with them, and of course their lives change forever. What happens? They run back to Jerusalem. They go back on the right path. Friends, the event in the Emmaus house that evening, it's a beautiful foreshadowing of the Mass, what we're doing here in the church, where Jesus breaks bread with us around the Eucharistic table of the altar. The entirety, friends, of the Old Testament, the Gospels, the crucifixion, and the resurrection, all what those acts God has done for us, all of that is contained in this tiny piece of bread, the Eucharist. The Eucharist, the living body of Jesus given to you and me to consume, to eat. That's why, everybody, if you find yourself questioning the faith, right, you're unsure of the Mass, unsure about what all this is about, or you're not even sure if God even exists, you find yourself questioning the existence of God, or you know family, friends, or neighbors who think quite similarly, invite them back to Mass. Come back to Mass. Return to the table of Christ. Don't let the scandalous events of sinful men in the church rob you of your love for God and the call to holiness and virtue. Don't let the voices of those in our culture today who do profess ideas and philosophies that make you question not only what has Christ done for you, but does he even exist? Don't let them rob you of the joy of knowing Jesus, of experiencing his hope-filled risen presence in your life. Don't walk away. Don't go down the wrong path. You've been called by Jesus to live and to have a relationship with him. He who can be found here in our little church. The Eucharist, everybody, is the risen flesh of Jesus, given to us consume as a piece of unleavened bread. The entirety of the power of the crucifixion and the resurrection resides as the Eucharist. The Eucharist is Jesus, friends, pure and simple. So today, when you receive the Blessed Sacrament, I invite you folks, ask Jesus. Really pray to Jesus. Ask him to make his loving presence reveal himself to you. Don't just receive it and just carry on as if nothing happened. Ask him to be open, that he may open the eyes of your heart to recognize his risen presence now physically in you. And be prepared for your life to change. Be prepared, folks, to do a 180-degree turn on whatever wrong path you find yourself spiraling down or going down. We who recognize that Jesus is not dead, but is in fact alive, are never the same. And we must invite everyone with a powerful sense, friends, of urgency to come and meet Jesus too. And don't be afraid to do so.